The basic scrape, sometimes called the rough scrape, is the first stage of scraping the reed after it has been wrapped and left to dry for at least a day. Our type of scrape is called the American scrape. Soak the reed for about 10 minutes in water before starting.
We take a blank reed and get it to the point where we've scraped enough off to make the reed crow. This is what the blank reed looks like. None of the cane has been scraped off yet, except a bit at the corners. During your first session with the reed, you want to take it from the blank state to a state where you can see all of the distinct sections of the reed. By the end of the session, you will want your reed to look like this.
Place the reed on the mandrel. For a typical American scrape, start by measuring 66 millimeters from the bottom of the staple. This will be the bottom of your V-line. It's actually an upside-down V, but we still call it a V-line. Go ahead and mark a pencil line at 66 millimeters across the blade.
The V-line is where the tip starts. Different reed makers use a more or less blended V-line, but we will start with one where you can distinctly see it.
The V-line to the end of the tip should be sloped, gradually getting thinner to the end of the tip. The tip should be shaded in front of the V-line.
We want to get the tip thin enough to clip it open. You will want to do some scrapes at the very end of the tip to get it thinner than the area that's right in front of the V-line.
Once you've scraped from the V-line to the tip on one side of the first blade, rotate the reed itself rather than the knife to scrape the other half of the first blade. This allows your scraping hand to remain in a comfortable position.
Then, turn your reed over and scrape the other side in exactly the same way. Before you start scraping, you can get your ruler and measure 66 millimeters to start the V-line on the second blade. And you should also check the point where the two blades come together to make sure the V-line matches from blade to blade.
Some people count their strokes to make sure they are making the same number of strokes from side to side and from blade to blade.
Once your tip is thin enough to clip, set it on the block and use a single-edge razor blade to clip it. Clip off about 1 millimeter in a rocking motion. If it's difficult to clip, this means your tip is still too thick and needs to be scraped some more. After clipping the reed, check it to make sure it has suction. This indicates that it is well sealed.
If it doesn't have suction, don't spend any more time on it. You don't want a leaky reed.
After the tip is clipped, dip your reed in the water to rejuvenate it. Then you can insert the plaque. Once the plaque is in, you can see if there are any uneven spots in your tip, and you can fix those. At this point, you will want to have the plaque in for the rest of your scraping. It's easier to scrape with the plaque in because you can see the inconsistencies in the tip. Make sure you don't put the plaque in too far.
Once the plaque is in, flick the reed. The plaque should stay in. If the reed is not sealing, the plaque will fly out.
Now you're ready to scrape the heart, which will be the thickest part of your reed. The scraping will be done on either side of the spine. This is the spine of your reed.
Strokes should be small. If you try to make long strokes, you may get a divot.
If you avoid getting divots, your reed will look smoother and sound smoother.
If you get a divot, you can scrape on it sideways to get rid of it.
As you scrape the heart, you will see two U-shapes emerge. Each stroke should follow through across the V-line. Keep working your way back with small strokes.
The total length of the heart will be about 5 millimeters.
Gradually work your way back to about 61 millimeters, which is 5 millimeters behind the V-line. Measure from the bottom of the staple to 61 millimeters and make a pencil mark on each side of the spine. Ever so slightly, score the pencil marks with your knife. This is the defining line between the heart and the back of the reed.
Start scraping just below the 61 millimeter mark and scrape up to your score mark. Each scrape you make should start a little further back on the window, scraping up to your score mark.
As you are scraping the windows, be sure to leave a spine and rails. Your scraping motions should be on either side of the spine. Keep scraping all the way to just a few millimeters in front of the string.
Unlike the tip, the thickness of each window should be the same throughout its length. Keep this in mind as you scrape the windows.
Once you've got the tip, back, and heart well delineated, take a look at your reed with the reed backlit. This will allow you to see the reed in a different way to determine if there are any inconsistencies in your scrape. On this reed, you can see that the right side of the back is thicker than the other side. So now I can fix this by taking more cane off that area.
If you see any places with the backlighting that are thicker than they should be, you can scrape those now.
What we want to do in this session is get the reed to make a noise that's close to a C. Nothing needs to be greatly refined at this point. Don't leave the session if the reed is longer than 71 or 72 millimeters. If you let it dry when it's too long, it won't hold itself open enough as it dries.
Try crowing your reed. If it crows flat and feels relatively loose, you can clip it again. If it crows sharp and feels tight, scrape more cane off before you clip it again.
Once the reed crow is close to a C and seems to have about the right amount of resistance, get the reed wet one more time, gently squeeze the reed open, and let it dry at least 24 hours. Then it will be ready for refining.
Now that's something to crow about.